it says in the Zohar that Techiyas HaMeisim will be 40 years after Moshiach comes. However, our Rebbe says as follows, that it can happen actually much sooner. This is the way the Rebbe put it. It can happen in 40 hours or 40 minutes. What does that mean? It's just a play on words? And the Rebbe gave this example. It says in the Chumash that the Jewish people were in the desert for 40 years. Why were they there for 40 years? Why the number 40? Because when they went in the desert, there was a punishment for spying on Israel in a negative way. How many days were they traveling in when they were spying? 40 days. So because they were there for 40 days, they were punished for 40 years. So the Rebbe said, if 40 days could become 40 years, then 40 years could become 40 days. Again, it still sounds like it's a play on words. What is the meaning to it? So the meaning to it is like this. We know from many other sources that whenever there's a time slot for something in Torah, that something takes, let's say the Torah was given in 40 days. That's how long Moshe was on the mountain. Certain things, there are different numbers. If we would understand the spiritual significance of each thing, we would see that here it needs to be 3. In a different case, it's 30. In another place, it's 300. So that applies to all the numbers in Torah. There's something that needs to happen, and this something has in it so many sort of details or levels. So when it happens, it plays out in 40 years or 40 days or 40 months because of that reason. In other words, the reason why the Torah was given in 40 days, it must be that there are 40 aspects or 40 levels within Torah. So it needed 40 days for each one of those levels to be transmitted from Hashem to Moshe. And the reason why the world had a flood which purified the world, and that flood lasted for 40 days and 40 nights, is also the same thing. Obviously, the process of purification has in it 40 levels, 40 things that have to happen in the process of purification. So each day, another one of those things happen. So when it says that it'll be 40 years for Techiyas HaMeisim, that means after Mashiach comes, we're going to have Techiyas HaMeisim. But that process, there are 40 aspects to it, so it'll need to go through 40 years. What the Rebbe is saying is the 40 days turn into 40 years, and 40 years can turn to 40 days means that, okay, Hashem could make that these 40 aspects should play out not in 40 years, but in 40 months. It'll still be 40. Or it can play out in 40 days, or in 40 hours, or in 40 minutes. But it'll be 40, because there are 40 different aspects. And that'll have to do with our merit. To give an example, it says that when Mashiach comes, a woman will give birth instead of 9 months in 9 hours. But the question is, why 9 hours? Did you just say she'll give birth on the day that she conceives? And the answer is because obviously there's something about the birth of a baby that needs to go through a process of 9, because there must be 9 different levels, 9 different aspects that have to do with the development of a baby. So now that development plays out in 9 months. When Mashiach will come, it'll develop in 9 hours. And that's what the Rebbe is saying. So clearly from the Zohar, we know that it's 40. But the fact that it says 40 years, that doesn't have to happen necessarily as years. It can happen in 40 days, and 40 hours, and so on. This is something which is relevant to resurrection of the dead, and many other things that you'll find that it says it must take so much time or so much time. The numbers are not necessarily have to happen in the way that it says in so many years. It can happen in much less, but it'll be the same number.